Hello, it is Gunnar Deatherage and welcome back to my sewing studio. Sorry it's been a little while since I've posted, but I've been renovating the studio. We've been traveling around the world a little bit, taking a little bit of a break, but today I am back with an incredible challenge. Today we are going to be remaking one of the dresses that I've been asked to remake the most times. That is the 2018 Met Gala look from Zendaya. It is her Joan of Arc look. It was originally made by Versace and it is definitely one of the most challenging pieces that I could try to create. And also, thankfully, we have an incredible sponsor today, which is Cricut, and they are going to be helping me bring this entire dress to life. Now, thankfully, my fiance Chris is going to be helping me throughout this whole process because we are on a time crunch and we have about 2 days to get it done, and he's one of the most capable people that I know, so he'll be an asset to this project. Now, I say that the success of any garment starts in the fabric store. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is going fabric shopping. So let's go. And we're going into the city to get fabric to recreate Zendaya's Met Gala dress. Okay, so the goal is to find as much fabric as possible. I'm sourcing for like 3 projects at the same time, but weirdly they're all silver, so. My first stop in the city was going to be my favorite trim store, which is Lauren Trim, and I'm hoping to find the perfect little silver buttons to go on the top of the armor. I've secured the buttons for the top of the dress. Now I just have to find all of the silver chainmail. I'm going to Mood. They usually have everything that I need, so let's hope that today is the same. Once I was in Mood, I found this mesh that was covered in large crystals, and I thought it really read as metallic, but I wasn't sure that it was going to read like the Zendaya dress. It had this kind of foiled, really like metal feel to it, but not the overall feel of the inspo dress. But I also found a few other options, and none of them really felt like that exact match, so I kept shopping around. I finally made my way over to another store, and then I stumbled on this fabric, and Chris really felt like it embodied the Zendaya dress, and so did my Instagram because I ran a poll and overwhelmingly the last fabric won, so we decided to commit and use that for the base dress. And for the armor, we found a metal chainmail mesh that matched the tone of the gray perfectly. I can almost barely hold these bags, but I think I got everything I needed. Now that I've got all of my fabrics, it's time for me to start making the dress. I'm gonna start by doing a little bit of draping for the bodice because I think that this is a draped bodice moment, and then I can make my way into the more tricky stuff. Draping is a term that describes using a fabric like a cotton muslin to create your pattern by sculpting on the dress form, and it's actually how I taught myself how to sew in the early days. So I feel like the muslin is gonna be more difficult than it is easy when it comes to like taking this off of the dress form, so I'm just gonna use my real fabric and hope for the best. As it turns out, using the actual fabric was definitely the answer. It was helpful to feel the weight of the beaded fabric and see how it was actually going to hang. I spent about 45 minutes just working on the shape of the front, and then once I had it looking like Zendaya's, it was time for the scary part, which is cutting away the actual beaded fabric once it's on the form. So one thing to know about me is that I can't use a computer to save my life, and because we need to create the armor for this, and I want to use the Cricut to help me, I'm gonna enlist a little bit of help from my partner Chris, who is the tech whiz between the two of us.
Okay, so Gunnar has asked me to help with some of the belt pieces that we're going to cut out with the Cricut.
The most intricate part of the dress by far is the armor. It's over 50 single pieces that need to hug the body like an exoskeleton, but the measurements need to be perfect in order for that to happen. Chris drew the pieces first on the iPad, and then he imported them into the Cricut design space, which made making the pieces the correct size really easy. The gridding with the measurements allowed him to configure how long the pieces would need to be able to wrap around the body. We're going to use the vinyl as our template, and then we're going to trace the pattern onto some really thick cotton batting so that we can cut the pieces out and have some really beautiful structure. And once Chris had finished this, he has to repeat this process like 40 more times. Okay, it's time to like pull this off of the dress form so that I can cut the lining, which, to be honest with you, this part always makes me so nervous because I'm hoping that it goes back into the shape when I'm done with it. But the next step is one that I equally love and hates. I have to smash the beads on this beaded fabric. So I do that because these little guys get stuck in the machine and then I break needles and it's a little dangerous. So I get to like bash them on a table. What that does is it breaks the bead, but it leaves the thread interwoven in the fabric. So sometimes like an entire line of sequins is attached to one thread, and then when you cut it, they all fall off. So this way it keeps the thread intact, but it breaks the bead. It makes it sewable. This part sounds like a construction site, so I'm gonna go ahead and spare for those of you who may be watching this like an ASMR style video. After the beads are smashed, I can then start stitching the bodice together on my sewing machine. So I have the bodice like basically done. Obviously there's like a big armor piece that's gonna go in here, but the next thing I have to conquer is the sleeve. So now I'm gonna go use like a pre-existing pattern piece that I have for one of my sewing patterns. I'm gonna turn that into a Zendaya sleeve. After I patterned out the sleeves, I cut them out, and unfortunately it was time for more bead smashing. I'm using this big rock because I lost the hammer. Looks like a dinosaur egg. Good morning, it is day 2. We are back. Needed a little break last night. So yesterday I finished the bodice and I think it looks really great, especially once we have the armor over the top of it and the belt. My goal today is to make and attach the entire skirt so that it's like a fully functional gown. Wish me luck. Draping the train is actually one of my favorite things to do because as long as it fits the waist measurement, you can make it into any shape that you want it to be. Okay, so I am trying to shape out my train and I'm using a tape measure to kind of like give me the shape here. I want drama, but I don't want this to like cling together because sometimes beaded fabric gets gross when you have a lot of it and it just kind of drags on the ground. So now I'm working on the lining, this netting. It's not very exciting, but it's definitely easier than working with the beads. And once I finish up the skirt of the lining and the dress is done, then we can start working on assembling the armor that Chris has been patterning out for me. While I had been sewing, Chris was actually cutting non-stop, and after about 14 hours worth of cutting those little pieces out, he finally had everything in a good place to start assembling and making sure that the shape was going to look perfect. That was crazy, just cutting it. It just falls apart. I am now going to attempt to attach these. I'm not sure if I'm going to be sewing it together or if I'm going to be gluing it. I've got both. I hate to glue things. If you've noticed in any of my other projects, I like to make things harder on myself, but I'm not really a fan of the sewing it onto this fabric. Okay, let's try glue. I just made a discovery. If I let it hang like this up and I can glue this way, it keeps the chainmail spread like really nice and evenly over top of this. I mean, this is gonna not be fun to do, but I'm gonna test this and see. Honestly, I will take that. I wonder if I hit this with a rubber mallet, if it will really just like crease them down, you know? That's the answer. So that means that we have hours and hours into the night of gluing ahead of us, but we are optimistic. How are we doing?
I've severely burnt myself many times. Blisters everywhere.
I think it's kind of a rite of passage a little bit.
My hot glue gun skills are lacking.
I may not have enough of this fabric.
Yeah, we're really close.
The metal mesh is like not as abundant as I would like, and we bought the store out of all of the mesh, so
it's gonna come down to the wire.
The original gown has a chain or a crystal that goes around the outside edges, and we bought something, but I don't think we bought enough.
Okay, well, the chain that we had is nowhere near enough. We have 4 yards of it.
3 yards, thinking that was gonna do something.
Ooh. Okay, well, this is what we're using instead. It's called lantern chain. It's a pretty close dupe. It's not obviously crystal, but I think it'll make a nice.
I think it's gonna be easy to glue. Okay, so I am sitting at the sewing machine. I have my chain. So I'm using a little E6000 glue because it just holds everything. It is my favorite kind of glue. I'm gonna do a little dab around the outside edges. It takes a while to cure, but it's the only glue that I have found that like really sticks metal to metal or like anything to metal. And I use it on all kinds of things. We use it on Shakira. We used it when we did the Chapel Roan looks. I use it on a little bit of everything. I think it just really works. Voila. See how like polished that looks? I still have to do some felt on the back, but the front looks really good, so. After what felt like an eternity of gluing, I finally finished adding the chain trim around the edges, and then Chris began adding the felt to the back of the piece. We're adding the felt so that the armor doesn't get stuck on the dress when the model's wearing it.
Okay, now all the pieces have been lined in felt, and it's time to assemble them, but I have to do it on the form because there is a strange curve to them all that if I did them flat, they wouldn't curve together, especially since they've gotten so thick.
Assembling the armor pieces was definitely a turning point in the project because it started to feel like everything was coming together. This look is definitely the sum of all of its parts, and what I mean by that is that every single detail helps elevate this look, and Zendaya's gown had these metal studs to make it feel more like a medieval armor, and we managed to find almost the same exact studs. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever made your own clothing before, but the most gratifying part of the process is putting your name inside of the clothing. And you know, even if you've not made clothing, that you always look at the label inside to see who made something. So today, I thought it would be really fun to make a custom label for this project to celebrate Cricut sponsoring us to make this beautiful piece. First, we're going to design the logo in the Cricut design space, and then we're going to cut it out on some Cricut Smart Vinyl, and then we're going to heat press it onto some leather, and then we can attach it to the inside of the armor. I just think it's a really special way of celebrating this really cool project, and it's like the last finishing touch before we can finish up the garment. Okay, so we have wig options for the photo shoot tomorrow.
2 ladies have entered the chat.
2 ladies have entered the chat. I used to do hair like maybe 8 years ago. I was a hairstylist, mainly a colorist, but I did do hair cutting as well. It's been a long time.
Okay, Gunnar, we're doing the fitting.
Queen's Gambit or Zendaya? You tell me. Going to shoot. Chasing the sun a little bit today. We're going to shoot at maybe Bethesda Fountain, and hopefully we don't get kicked out of the park. I was a little nervous about shooting in public in Central Park, but honestly, it was so easy and nobody really bothered us at all. After days of work, I am so proud to share our finished recreation. I've paired it next to Zendaya's actual gown so that you can see the side by side. Our fabrics may be slightly different, but I really think that we were able to capture the essence of the original gown. And for 2 days worth of work, I'm really proud of what we managed to make happen. These kind of recreations are a great exercise in building skills and craftsmanship, and I really love the problem solving that it takes to pull off something so grand. What do you guys think of our Met Gala recreation?